friends, you're on the Military with Summary channel, and today we will discuss the situation in Ukraine on the 10th of November of 2025. Today we have lots of very interesting updates, so let's start. And first we're going to talk about the situation on the ground, and let's start with the Zaporizhzhia direction, where the Russians continue their offensive operation both on the western and the eastern flanks of this direction. First, let's talk about the territory, about the situation around the settlement of Stepnogorsk. Today, several pro-Russian sources reported that Russians managed to improve their position significantly around the main Stepnogorsk citadel. We're talking about this high-rise building area. Furthermore, the Russians, as a result of offensive operation, managed to improve their positions further in the eastern direction. And it seems that now the Russians are trying to take under complete control all these fields and all these trenches with the purpose to attack the settlement of Orekhov from the west. So I would like to remind you that several days ago there were reports published by different pro-Russian sources that the Russians managed to improve their position significantly in the northern parts. Later we received lots of videos of how Russians established complete epidome control over the main supply line M18, and now we see that the Russians with these maneuvers allowed themselves, achieved some progress, some success, and now they're trying to secure the territory of Stepnogorsk completely. As for the eastern flank of the Zaporizhzhia direction, during the previous 12 hours, we received lots of very interesting updates. So we have two updates. The first one was published by pro-Ukrainian sources. According to them, the villages of Nova, the villages of Nova, Novospenovka were already colored by Ukrainians as a gray zone. So we can see these huge gray zones to the west of the settlement of Uspenovka. So this is a very important update because according to this information, the Russians during the previous days managed to get outskirts of the settlement of Rivnopolia. The Russians managed to answer the village of Solotka. By the way, we were talking about this during the previous videos. And Russians, according to pro-Ukrainian source, managed to answer the village of Novospinovskaya from the south. Once again, this is the map that was provided today by pro-Ukrainian sources. And telling the truth, right before we started making this video, pro-Russian sources of the group of forces East reported that all these villages were captured. So we haven't managed to add these icons to the map because we were about to start making this video, but we will discuss this during the next update. But one thing is clear, that all these villages were captured by Russians. We have video with flags, and most likely Russians will continue advancing further. So now we see that the Russians are moving faster and faster, and now it's probably the battle for the settlement of Gulai Polya will begin in 2025, and maybe this year the battle will be even finished. Furthermore, the Russians continue their offensive operation in the direction of the settlement of Aristopol. Today, this information was reported and confirmed by neutral mappers. I would like to remind you that yesterday we got report about this from pro-Russian sources, and today this information was confirmed by neutral mappers. Furthermore, the Russians continue bombing and attacking the settlement of Velika Mikhailovka. Most likely, the Ukrainians are trying to organize defense in this area, but the Russians control the situation and they attack and bomb this territory with all calibers they have. So let's wait and see what is going to be next, but obviously this might be another battle in the Zaporizhzhia direction. Now let's talk about the city of Pokrovsk, and we have a very important piece of news. So basically we haven't received anything during the previous 12 hours, and this is a very important thing. So as you can see, during the previous 12 hours nothing happened. Probably there were lots of events, lots of updates, but we haven't received anything when talking about videos or geolocations. The only thing we have is the statement that was made by the chief of the general staff of the armed forces of Ukraine, Alexander Syrsky. He stated that the armed forces have several different action plans near Pokrovsk. Of course, there is a plan B and a plan C for every possible scenario. Syrsky said that Russia has concentrated around 50,000 troops in the Pokrovsk area and deployed the 425th Assault Regiment, which he described as highly effective. At the same time, Syrsky claimed that the intensity of Russian attacks has somewhat decreased and that the situation remains under control. So maybe this is exactly what Syrsky was talking about. No updates from this area means that the Russians reduced their offensive activities, but at the same time we received a very important video from the settlement by the name of Shakhova, and it seems that a turning point in the battle for the village occurred. So this video was published by pro-Russian sources, and here we can see how Russians were attacking the settlement of Shakhova, its northeastern part, and here we can see a Russian soldier. The quality of the video probably doesn't allow to see this soldier from your point to view, but I can see this soldier right here. And we came to conclusion that the Russians entered this part of Shahov, and now they're trying to clear this territory, and that there are very heavy clashes. And based on this video, we have adjusted the map. So despite the fact that Ukrainians managed to improve their position significantly around the Shahov pocket, we see that the Russians continue their own offensive with the purpose to capture the settlement without any chances for Ukrainian side. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the city of Konstantinovka. During the previous 12 hours, the Russians continued bombing and attacking positions of the armed forces of Ukraine across the city. I would like to remind you that during the previous days, we received lots of updates from the southeastern part of the settlement of Konstantinovka. We got a lot of reports that the Russians managed to improve their position significantly and to capture lots of buildings and constructions in this part, but the Russians are not moving very fast. There are still lots of Ukrainians in the western part of the city, so that is why the Russians, as you can see according to this video, were bombing Ukrainian forces with all type of calibers they have, just with one purpose: to reduce the resistance of the armed forces of Ukraine and then to continue offensive operation. In this video we can see how a Russian FPV drone was flying above buildings that were attacked by Russian aviation. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the Siversk, Liman and Kupyansk directions. As for the Siversk, Liman, we haven't received anything special. The only thing we have is that Russians continue their offensive operation along this dense network of the fortifications. Now the Russians are tasked to secure this territory, and most likely this is going to happen within the next days. And as for the Kupyansk direction, during the previous 12 hours, we received lots of very interesting updates. And first of all, and the most important, is that Russians managed to improve their position along R79 road. So this video was published by pro-Ukrainian sources, and here we can see how Ukrainians were hunting and attacking Russian positions and Russian soldiers across the western part of the city of Kupyansk. There are lots of episodes of drone attacks, and some of these buildings were geolocated, and for example these buildings, small buildings, were geolocated right exactly along R79 road, right exactly this place. So based on this video we have adjusted the map, we have colored additional territories and the complete control of the armed forces of the Russian Federation. So we see that despite talks and despite information that was provided by pro-Ukrainian sources, the Russians control the situation around the city of Kupyansk, and the Russians continue improving their positions. So I would like to remind you that there is another cauldron by the name of the cauldron of the city of Kupyansk. As for the Kharkiv direction, during the previous 12 hours, we had received additional information. Today, we got report that the Russians managed to improve their position significantly around the settlement by the name of Dvorechinskaya. The pro-Russian sources are saying that the armed forces of the Russian Federation entered its northern part, so currently the clashes are taking place for this area. Furthermore, during the previous night, we adjusted the map along this tree line, so we had a video that was published by pro-Ukrainian sources where we can see how Ukrainians were attacking Russians in this area. So in this video we can see FPV drone attacks and Russian stormtroopers that were clearing this forest. So based on this video we came to conclusion that the Russians indeed improved their positions and continue advancing operation further in the direction of Dvorechinskaya. We received lots of very interesting updates from the city by the name of Volchansk. During the previous 12 hours, the Russians continued their offensive operation in two directions. Now the Russians are focused and tasked to secure the central part or the southern part of the city of Volchansk, this area. And during the previous 12 hours, several pro-Russian sources adjusted their maps in this territory. So this is the map that was provided by neutral mappers. This is the pro-Russian map. Furthermore, we have a video that confirmed Russian control and Russian additional progress on the ground. In this video we can see how Russians were securing the settlement of Volchansk right exactly in this part. Based on this video we came to conclusion that most of the southern part of the city or the central part was already captured. Furthermore, the Russians continue advancing in the Sinelnikovo forest. During the previous 24 hours, additional changes on the ground were recorded exactly in this area. So this is the situation by the end of the 9th of November, and this is the situation by the beginning of the 10th of November. The Russians are advancing further, and they will continue advancing along the Sinelnikovo forest. The Russians will try to cut physically T-2104 road. This will allow the Russians to cut supply and support of the Ukrainian contingent who is currently located on the territory of the settlement by the name of Volcha. So this is a small stronghold of the armed forces of Ukraine to the south of the city of Volchansk, and right after the Russians finish the battle for Volchansk, they will start offensive operation in this direction as well. And that's it for the short video. Military Summary channel reminds to condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.